I'm Manasco with Illuminating the Future, here with David Meerman Scott in
Hey, Britt.
Austin.
Thanks for staying 3 hours from a marathon panel. It was good.
Wait. Okay, well, let me start out with the first question. You talked about earning attention through generating content, and you said one of the biggest problems, or one of the rules, is it's not about you. I think a lot of our visitors on the site, readers and followers, they agree with this. But I think some of the problem is that this isn't being applied consistently.
Right.
So I'm curious
Right.
what you think is stopping companies from applying this consistently, and then what steps can be taken to get there?
I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that those of us who have learned marketing over the years, or those of us who have learned how to do marketing from others who learned over the years, we learned things like the 4 Ps. The first one's product, right?
Right.
I think the second one's PowerPoint, but I'm not sure. And we just learned how to hype our products, and we learned how to do copywriting about products, and then we talked about benefits, not features, but it's still about the product.
Right.
And that's kind of been drummed in our head. And the CEO and the product manager and the VPs are all think that you have to talk about the product, when that's not what people care about. What they care about are themselves, and what they care about are solving their problems. So changing the content to be focused on the buyers as opposed to focused on you from an egotistical perspective is the key. But it's really hard. It's really easy to slip back. I've done it myself.
Yeah.
Right. I write books, I give speeches. I'll find myself in a blog post, talking about my book in a way that I might think a couple days later, what in the world was I thinking? I'm pimping my book. People like what I say, they'll buy my book. I don't have to tell them to buy my book.
Right.
So even me, the guy who's always harping about this stuff, I fall into that trap myself sometimes.
Well, it's a good question. It leads into my second thought, which is about corporate gobbledygook, which you talk about. But it's a tricky situation because a lot of your customers, people's customers, they're selling to the Fortune 500. That's the way they talk in that corporate environment.
You know what? It's really not. It's really not. I mean, people use industry jargon.
Right.
We do here in the social media land. We use industry jargon. But what people don't use every day are generic, hypey kind of words like world class, mission critical, cutting edge, market leading. These are the words that I have the big innovation. These are the words I have the biggest problem with. But if you've got industry jargon, industry buzzwords, that's fine. It's the superlative kind of words that are so overused to have become meaningless that are really becoming the problems, and the words that everybody uses. If everyone says they're a world-class company, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Do you have some practical advice for capturing that right language?
What you want to do is you really want to be using the language that your buyers use. So the best way is if you can literally interview your buyers, representatives of what I call your buyer personas.
Yeah.
And I think you use that term too sometimes, right? So focusing on your buyer personas allows you to literally understand the words and phrases that they use, which allows you to then craft language which will appeal to them, because you're literally parroting back the words and phrases that they would use back to them. And by the way, it works great for search engine optimization, because if you put that content on a blog post or website or something, and people then go to enter a phrase, they're not entering, I'm looking for a world-class mission-critical cutting-edge company.
Right.
They're entering a phrase that is more meaningful for them. And then if you're using that phrase, they'll find you through the search engines.
Good. Another thing you talked about in your book is about losing control, or surrendering control.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how in a business-to-business environment with complex solutions, when we talk about nurturing and so forth, how do we reconcile the question of giving away content and so forth, and the necessity, perhaps or perhaps not, to capture information so that we can nurture those relationships through a decision process?
Yeah, so, the B2B lead generation has always been about providing bait, which then people, fill out a form to get a white paper, or they put a business card in the goldfish bowl because they want to win an iPod, this kind of thing.
Right.
There's been a lot of that in the world. It's like a coercion kind of thing. It's as if people don't want to talk to us, so we have to force them into something to get them to talk to us, to get that name. Now, I do understand that it's great to know the people who are interested in what you do, because then the salespeople can carry on a relationship with them. I'm all for that. But I'm not, I absolutely don't believe that you ought to take something valuable, put a gate on it, and say the only way I'm going to give this to you is if you give me something in return. That's not this is not a transaction that makes sense. And in fact, transactions themselves don't make sense. You ought to give a gift to the people that you're trying to reach. Give them something free, no registration at all, no strings attached. Here, take it. You don't have to tell me who you are. I just got out of a presentation, 300 people in the room. I don't collect business cards before they walk in the door. I'm hoping somebody learns something. I've given them a gift, and then maybe they'll go back and maybe they'll decide to buy a book or ask me to speak at their company or something. So here's how I think you can solve it. I call it a hybrid model.
Yeah.
Give a whole bunch of stuff away for free. Maybe white papers, ebooks, whatever they are, YouTube videos, whatever it is, and then have a secondary offer inside it. So the white paper itself is free, no registration.
Right.
Hopefully then people will spread the ideas. If the white paper is good, you'll get tons of downloads. Right. One of my ebooks called The New Rules of Viral Marketing has been downloaded over 1 million times. And as a result of that, people point to it. And as a result of that, it's number one. It's on the first page of Google for the phrase viral marketing out of like 7 million hits. That's what can happen to these kinds of papers. And then the secondary offer goes inside the white paper or the ebook, which that's where you can collect registration information in that secondary offer. So the secondary offer inside the ebook is, you just read our ebook, that's great. Click here to join a webinar where we go into greater detail, or click here to download part 2 of the ebook. Whatever it is, but that secondary offer is where then you can actually capture that name.
Final question. You've just released your revised edition of the New Rules of Marketing and PR.
I did. And in January of 2010.
So I'm interested in hearing, in the time since you wrote the first version and the new version.
Yeah.
Something that surprised you, or something that you learned that you think that is really important to get across.
Okay. Well, first of all, the book, as you know, came out in June of 2007. You were, I think, one of the first 10 bloggers to blog about it. You were really, really early. So thank you for that. I think part of the success of that book was that you and a few dozen other people jumped in like literally the first week that the book came out. It was wonderful stuff. Anyway, so thank you for that. The book comes out in June 2007. Second Life is the biggest thing in the world. When I wrote the book in 2006, Twitter didn't exist. Facebook was only for students, right? This is a different world in 2006 when I was writing, 2007 when it came out. So I had to update to include Twitter, to include Facebook, to get rid of all but one paragraph of Second Life. And then I updated a lot of the stories and put more interesting stories, like stories about the U.S. Air Force, for example, things that I hadn't experienced when I was writing the first edition. That's sort of normal what I updated in the book. Now, what really surprised me was how this stuff has gone mainstream. Like, you and I were pioneers. This in 2007, this was like, wow, this stuff is radical. And there's like 3 people in my entire company of 10,000 people who could ever even understand what this is, let alone try to implement it. And now it's mainstream, it's everywhere, and it's global. That's the other thing that was incredibly surprising. Finally, and people tell me this all the time, it's surprising that people who have been doing traditional marketing for a long time are suddenly having fun at work. Because it's fun. Like, doing a YouTube video is fun, and it's not that we're fooling around, but it's that it can make our jobs more interesting and more fun.
Sure. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
David.